Do you think suicide is always wrong? Do you think that all suicides are morally, ethically, and spiritually equal? I think there the answers have to be no and no. Suicide is typically a response to either mental illness, as it is in most cases, or occasionally in a kind of narcissistic desire to assert inappropriate control over our lives. But it's not always that. And the case of Brittany Maynard that's now in the news reminds us of an important set of ethical questions and sensitivities that I think we have to bring to bear when people are suffering and trying to figure out the last stages of life. Sometimes, in the case of people like Brittany Maynard, it may be that choosing to end one's life is actually, in its own way, an affirmation of life itself. 29-year-old Maynard was diagnosed initially with a brain tumor that they said would give her 10 years to live. Sounds like a long time, and as horrible as that diagnosis is, as painful as it was for her to receive at that young age, she agreed that was at least a meaningful amount of time. The tumor progressed, and she was then told that, in fact, this was a very aggressive and totally untreatable form of brain cancer that would take her life in the very near future. What to do? She's made the decision that in a few weeks, she will end her life just days after her young husband's birthday. She explains as follows: "There is not a cell in my body that is suicidal or that wants to die. I want," Maynard says, "to live. I wish there was a cure for my disease, but there isn't." It's a heartbreaking story. And I feel that at moments when our hearts are allowed to break, they can break open. And new wisdom, new responses to these horrible circumstances can be found. We don't simply default to, it's every person's right to take their own life, because frankly, that's a pretty macabre and even cynical response to the gift of life. But it seems equally dangerous and heartless to me to simply say that no matter what the pain, no matter what the suffering, no matter what the impossibility to cure, no one has a right to manage the end of their life so it is as painless and dignified as is humanly possible. I don't know that I would make Maynard's choice. In fact, I think I wouldn't. But I do know this. It is a choice being made in the same spirit of life, in the same fight against casually taking life, in the spirit of the same desire to nurture life in both quality and quantity that lies at the heart of the traditions which teach us suicide is wrong. So without advocating for suicide, I hope that in the coming weeks people will take a moment to think about Miss Maynard and millions of other people facing a life with no possibility of cure, and the almost guaranteed presence of profound pain, and ask what it is we can do to both honor life, fight for life, but fight for both its quality and its quantity, and to allow people to be cared for as fully as possible when there is nothing else to do except care for them.